the Trump administration is clearly in the middle of what could culminate in a regime change operation, but for now is certainly provocations outside, off the coast of Venezuela. Also, CIA operations within Venezuela have been greenlit. So, Shelby, there's so much debate right now happening about whether this is legal. Senator Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, others have expressed their concerns. Democrats have certainly expressed their concerns as we approach about, I think, 40 deaths over the last 7 or 8 weeks, according to the government on these strikes. They've provided very little information to substantiate their claims that, and that's by their own, I don't want to say admission, but that's kind of by their own logic. They're saying, trust us, we have an intel. These are narco terrorists. We are taking them out. And so, on the other hand, presidential war powers are extremely, extremely broad. And as much as people like a Rand Paul may not like what's happening, I did want to raise a fascinating Substack piece from the Executive Functions Substack. And this is quite an interesting argument. And I suspected something like this would surface sooner rather than later. So Executive Functions writes, many commenters have argued that the Trump administration's Venezuelan boat strikes are unlawful. Marty Lederman, for example, maintains that the strike lacks any basis in Article 2 and violates the assassination ban as well as the criminal murder prohibitions in the U.S. Code and Uniform Code of Military Justice. The Trump administration, though, has concluded otherwise. Charlie Savage reports in the New York Times that, quote, and this is the key, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, which Mr. Trump sidelined for most of the year until appointing an official lead in August as preparations for the attacks ramped up, has produced a memo apparently blessing this campaign. So this classified, unpublished memo is crucial inside the government because it confers a, quote, golden shield, as it's been called, of immunity from criminal prosecution on anyone who acts in reliance on it. So this is not the argument that the administration itself has been making publicly, but it seems to have gotten into the New York Times. Shelby, is this sort of what's giving the administration comfort in the legality of their actions? Obviously, people can be prosecuted when there are illegal actions taken in the future. So is this, have you heard anything about this? What are you hearing about how they're seeing the risks of proceeding apace with this conflict?
Well, I think that there's a few aspects. First of all, this legal opinion certainly gives them a lot of cover in their minds, right? And it's actually been, this legal opinion has been sort of used to justify a lot of the other incidents, right? The Defense Department had a memo to lawmakers, for example, that outlined the legal basis of these strikes. And it argued that the U.S. is in an armed conflict with the cartels. And reportedly, this memo leaned heavily on that opinion. And so you're seeing how this legal opinion is being used to justify everything else. And it's sort of the big dog at the top, and then everything else is falling underneath it. But I also think that when I talk to Trump administration officials about this, I think that they believe that there's not going to be a significant amount of pushback. And really, so far, there hasn't been. The majority of Republicans are okay with what's happening, right? Even if they say, oh, we don't really love this, there hasn't been significant action to push back on the Trump administration. And I think that's because the administration's argument is, well, what are you going to do? We're saying that these are drug boats. We're saying that these are cartel members. If you push back on us, then you're essentially saying that you are for these drug boats or these drug cartel members, right? And so it's a really touchy subject for lawmakers, and I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen more pushback. I mean, even there's some Democrats who are for these boat strikes, but certainly the legal opinion and that Substack article I found really interesting because it really laid out how it sort of gives cover for administration officials to move forward with these strikes.
Yeah, and it's not from a pro-Trump perspective, hardly from a pro-Trump perspective, but lays out all of these other examples as when an OLC opinion, quote, blessing the operation eliminates the difficulty and immunizes the officer and everyone else who relies on it from subsequent punishment. So any military officials involved in the clearly legally controversial Venezuelan boat strikes must negotiate their twin duties of following a superior order and not following a patently illegal order. And when you have this blessing, it's so in the weeds from the Office of the Legal Counsel, and the New York Times reports it out. I don't know, Shelby. I just think it seems to suggest that the admin is very comfortable with the politics of the strike, and actually that presidential war powers have become so broad that you could kind of, it's sort of like the opposite of being able to prosecute a ham sandwich. You can prosecute the war version of a ham sandwich if you're the president.
Yeah,
like you can find a way.
Yeah, I mean, and this Substack lays it out pretty well, I think, as somebody who is obviously not a lawyer. But when I was reading,
this is why we brought you on here, Shelby, as
not
a
pretending
legal
to be a
scholar,
lawyer,
constitutional lawyer.
But it does seem to be so broad that the question is, how would you be able to prosecute when you have essentially the U.S. government telling people legally you're okay to do this, right? And that's kind of one of the aspects of this Substack is you have this government legal opinion, the top dog saying to lower level people, you're allowed to do this. You are legally justified in doing this, which then makes it very difficult to prosecute for it. So I do think that the Trump administration is extremely comfortable. And I also think that this is an example of the Trump administration really pushing the boundaries. And we've seen this in a lot of different ways. Pushing the boundaries in terms of they know exactly what they want. They know the end goal. They know what they want to do. And this time around, compared to the first term, they have a lot more people who are allies of the president and who are on board fully with what this administration is trying to do. And so you're seeing them use levers and push things to an extent that we really didn't see in the first administration. And I think this is a prime example.
Last question, Shelby. There's a lot of reporting that much of this Venezuela effort is being fueled by Senator Marco Rubio. Is that what your sources say? A lot of this is coming from state, but actually particularly from Rubio himself.
Yeah, I think it's no surprise. Marco Rubio has long had very strong opinions on Venezuela. He has been open about how he feels about Nicolas Maduro. I also think Stephen Miller is extremely involved in sort of the drug cartel aspect of it. And so you have multiple people on board, but you do have a whole group of Trump administration officials who are driving it. And I would say Rubio and Miller are sort of the two top dogs in this scenario. But the ultimate question, of course, is this really about drugs or is it about regime change, right? And I have my opinions on that. I think we're going to find out. But certainly it seems like the administration is not going to continue to just strike by air. I think there's going to be escalation, certainly.
Oh, interesting. Stephen Miller being involved certainly suggests that a regime change may be a situation where you're able to deport more Venezuelans as well, that might be something on why it would be a priority for him. That could possibly be the case, Shelby. If you have a friendly regime that isn't Nicolas Maduro, you're able to say, we're landing the plane, more deportations. Maybe that has something to do with Miller's portfolio being involved.
Yeah, I mean, I also think just the drug cartel aspect, the immigration aspect, all of that has brought his involvement into things. But certainly Rubio is one of the people in the room when they're making these decisions. Like I was told a month or so ago, it's the VP, the president, Hegseth, Rubio. Like those are the people in the room for a lot of the decision making on Venezuela. And what a lot of them have, they're all on board with what has been happening. And I think when you're talking about regime change, no one in the administration has openly said, we want regime change, but they've made it very clear that they think that Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate leader. They have essentially designated him as the head of this cartel unit, right? By tying him to the drug cartels. And so the question is, well, if all of that is true, then how can the administration, in their mind, allow him to remain as the Venezuelan leader? So we'll see on that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great point, because then if they don't take action, a lot of questions follow afterwards. Have you ever noticed those very creepy ads that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been what you've bought, even what you've been talking about. You've probably asked yourself, is my phone monitoring me? The truth is your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge or consent. Every day it builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people with whom you communicate. That information is, of course, then funneled into an invisible marketplace where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold to the highest bidder, which, by the way, could include the government. It's not just annoying, it's invasive, and it's happening all the time. But the UP phone, the Up phone by Unplugged, is different. It's designed to protect your privacy from the ground up. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control, whether you're texting, browsing, or using apps. The Up phone ensures your personal information stays personal. It's the phone for people who are done being watched, ready to take back your digital privacy. Visit unplugged.com/Emily and get $25 off a phone case with a purchase of a phone. Learn more and order your Up phone, UP phone today. That's unplugged.com/Emily, because your life should be yours and not theirs.